Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 3 of the Salzer Brothers, the Samurai Brothers Wrestling Podcast. I am John. I'm here with my brother Matthew, and got another week that we're going into. Lots of things to talk about. Matthew, thanks for being on here. It's always a pleasure to be speaking with you. And so just to cover our topics for today. So this past weekend was the NAIA Championship. So we're going to go over who ended up winning the title. We're also going to be covering the previews for the NCAA D3 and D2 Division National Championships. So just to give you an idea of who's going to be competing for those titles. This week is NCAA D1 Conference Championship weekend.
But those are ongoing.
Yes, those are ongoing. So in light of that, we'll be covering the results of that next week, just to allow for some breathing room in that. And then we do have a couple of controversies going on in the world of wrestling. So, kind of want to cover that. And obviously there's a lot that needs to be divulged and digested from that. So we're hoping to cover that. And then we're going to be seeing that a school that in Division I that had axed their wrestling program several years ago will be coming back, and we'll be talking about the significance of that program coming back. So Matthew, let's get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and screen share so that we can make sure that we're covering the topics. So if you could just make sure that screen share is enabled for me. And let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have the right window. Okay, so Matthew, can you see the screen there?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
I have enabled it. We've been having technical issues. Okay, there we go.
All right. So, as we talked about last week, we had a couple of schools going in with full teams. I believe it was Grandview, Life, and I believe Indiana Tech was the other team that was going in. Life, Georgia, was trying to repeat their win from last year. And then you had Grandview trying to get back on the podium for the first time in 2 years. And it seems that the ones that emerged victorious this time was Grandview. And yes, it was
not by a small margin either.
No, this race was over before the finals. And Grandview had a lot going for them in the finals anyway, because they had 6 finalists. And it ended up with 3 finalists standing atop the leaderboards. So this was, again, Grandview had a total of 9 All-Americans for NAIA. And again, 6 in the finals, which, when you get that far, it's really hard for any other team to catch up.
Yeah, just getting into the finals with the 6. No wonder it was done before the finals. It's like that. If you have more than half of the weight classes with finalists in there, then yeah, it's over. That it doesn't matter what level. What college level? 6, you're pretty much guaranteed the championship.
So again, yes, going back to this lot, the final score, Grandview 206.5 points versus Life, who had a total of 149 points. It's again really hard but Life pretty much had second place locked up because the team after them was Southeastern, who had a total of 101.5 points. And so, and again, Grandview just showing, their dominance in recent times. There's always a trend, depending on, which part of history you're in, is that you're going to have these these dynasties. And Grandview, it has, as we've seen, no intention of, letting the foot off the gas pedal, considering that, they were on a 9-peat for a while before life interrupted that streak. But now they are back on top. So this is their 10th championship within the last 11 years. So Matthew, what do you think about the fact that, they really were relentless in this pursuit?
They definitely came back with a vengeance. They didn't like getting knocked off of the top of the podium. And they're just like, you know what, we're going to come back. We're going to come back hard, and we're going to take that championship back. They've loved their domination of the NAIA, and clearly they didn't like being unseated by a program that, would less than a decade ago didn't exist. So they came back, and they came back with a vengeance, and they took it. So it's can't really say it's unexpected. The win itself is not unexpected. The destroying life completely, they were trying to make a statement like, you may have won, but you're not a dynasty.
And in the end, life did have some people into the finals. They did have at 149 and 157, they did win those weight classes, and then they lost at 197. So in the end, Grandview did have the most champions with 3. Life shared second place as far as the most champions with Indiana Tech University with 2 each. And then other schools that ended up winning the weight classes were Southeastern from Florida, Duane University from Nebraska, and then Cumberland from Tennessee. So
again, to me, it still kind of surprising that I'm hearing about all these programs that when I was wrestling didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's
right.
like most of these programs, as a matter of fact, didn't exist. And
that probably comes down to who's coaching there, and who they're recruiting, because I'm sure that as time goes on, you'll see maybe these coaches wrestled for a time, and then they decided that they wanted to start a program. And I think the significance about starting a program and then getting it to be successful is who your connections are. So I'm very sure that Life had to have some, whoever started the program at Life and was able to recruit had some really good connections, because I'm sure, as you're aware, to you and me, Georgia doesn't really seem like a very wrestling centered state, considering that, it's more like football is, the king of sports in that particular.
Yeah, they just, the Georgia Bulldogs just won their first championship in who knows how long in the Bull Division football. So that's essentially what they're known for. They're known for their little Ugga Bulldog that shows up in his own jersey every game. They're not known for wrestlers. I don't think there was ever a time when they were known for their wrestling, even before Title IX. I'm sure that there were a few programs, and we'd have to check back, but I'm sure there were a few programs, because there were the NCAA is at half the number of programs that there were pre-Title IX. So there had to have been at least 1 or 2 in Georgia. So for Georgia to have not had wrestling at all, and then for Life to pop up, and within a decade of it popping up, winning a national championship, is a accomplishment in and of itself. But something else I noticed as well, I think it was like at 18th or 19th place, for example, Vanguard restarted their program. Essentially, they're starting from scratch, and they...
Yes, Vanguard
they're at 18th. They're above, like I went to Missouri Baptist. Missouri Baptist was the wrestling program was established, I think, in the 90s. So it was around for at least a decade before I started wrestling there. And here is, yeah, they're at 32nd right there. So here is an established program, and here's Vanguard, who, like I said, just started from scratch. Also, if you look at William Penn, so I don't know if you remember this, but one of my high school teammates, Emmanuel Hernandez, he went to William and Penn. So, and he was a state placer. So again, to have these long established programs being beat out by these more recent programs, like I'll put another one in there, Missouri Valley. Missouri Valley's been around forever as well. They might have won an NAIA championship, and here they're being beat out by Vanguard, Life, these programs that just either were restarted from scratch or started out of nowhere. So yeah, it takes a lot to be able to coach these guys to a championship, but especially be able to recruit when you're starting out with nothing essentially.
Well, and here's an interesting one about Vanguard, and a fellow coach of mine, Alan from Santa Ana College, pointed out one of the wrestlers at Vanguard who ended up placing at the NAIA tournament, Armand Fayazi. He's actually a 5-time All-American. You know, he did 2 years at Santa Ana College. He placed top 4 at the 3C2A championships, which if you place top 4, that grants you All-American status. And then his time at Vanguard, then he placed, you know, his junior and senior year, which happened before the pandemic. He placed top 8 in those tournaments. And he was granted a 5th year of eligibility because of, you know, the COVID pandemic hardships. They did grant an extra year of eligibility to athletes for that. So he decided to take advantage of that. And so he ended up taking 7th at the NAIA championships this year, meaning that, yes, technically he is a 5-time All-American.
You don't see that very often.
No, you're not going to see that very often. You know,
that reminds me of that. I forgot who is. It's like when we have like an off week, we should bring this up and actually talk about it. But that kind of reminds me of that 6-time national champion that we talked about.
Yes, the 6-time NCAA champion. Yes, we'll definitely make sure to talk about him.
Yeah, like we should talk about some just interesting topics that are like standalone on our off weeks, because right now we've got some busy stuff going on, but it's like in the off weeks we should bring stuff like that, and that's something we need to talk about.
Definitely, for sure. So anyway, just goes to show that, yes, I think you're right. You know, you're gonna have programs popping up here and there. You're gonna have programs that have been around for a while, and you know, they might have lost the luster. Not to say that they're bad programs, but it's just that, you know, you're going to have coaches coming in just depending on where in the season or where in years coming and going. And you're just going to have when you surround yourself with good people, good coaches, good fundraisers, you know, you have to have the financial backing and such too. When you have all of that, then you're definitely going to be able to put together a successful program. And I think this just continues to show Grandview, again, like we both mentioned, Grandview has no intention of stopping this. I'm very sure that they're going to have a dominant team coming back next year as well.
Well, yeah, and that's something that can definitely be discussed, is the fact that you build a dynasty, you're going to have this pipeline of good wrestlers coming in, even if they aren't those athletes that are starting out in their freshman year or even after taking a red shirt. You're still going to have people coming in. So,
in fact, here's the timeline. I was able to find and dig up the, you know, who's won the title so far. And again, from 2012 to 2020, It was a 9-year streak by Grandview. And and if you look at some of the scores too, these scores, aside from maybe a year or two, these scores have not been close. So when it's been Grandview winning it, they mean it. They mean business.
Well, and if you look at it, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week. I don't know if you want to go back up to just kind of show the details of like how, yeah. So if you go back to no, go down. We're just talking recent. Let's see. If you go to right around 2002 and you see
yeah, you're right. You had Lindenwood.
Yeah, from 2002 you had Lindenwood and Notre Dame. Those were the big players that were consistently winning the championships. And as we discussed last year, Lindenwood's now going D1 and Notre Dame is in D2. So, and there were a bunch of other contenders in there that left as well. So, and unfortunately, the 2006 one, Dana College actually folded as a college, not just as a program. So, but that just goes to show is that you had all these big players like the 2008 championships. McKendree, they went D2 as well. So you had a bunch of these players go up, and then all of a sudden Grandview and notice before that Grandview was not even they weren't even the finalists for the longest time. And then all of a sudden Notre Dame starts to transition, and from 2012 on, Grandview was ruling the roost. Like, yes. That's a perfect example. When I was wrestling, which I ended in 2011, Grandview, I don't even know if they even made the top 10. Maybe they were when they were starting to phase out. But, yeah, they just were not. They were not known for being those top a top team. But then all of a sudden, everyone else left, and they're like, well, let's start ruling. And yeah,
well, and I think also that it gets interesting because yes, I think when these schools start finding success in a variety of ways, then they're going to end up going to they're going to transition from NAIA to the NCAA. And I believe that, yes, you're right in that Lindenwood, they're transitioning now to D1. McKendree, is in the NCAA as well. And I think there's a couple of older schools also. If you're looking at a couple of these older schools, I think Mankato State, I believe, is in the NCAA, either D2 or D3. In fact, I think we're going to be talking about that.
Nebraska, Omaha.
Right, Nebraska, Omaha. And, so you've got these schools. In fact, well, and that's something we'll have to talk about later because Nebraska, Omaha doesn't exist anymore because
that whole thing
went to D1. And one of the conditions that I heard, and this is unsubstantiated, so I'm not going to say that it's true, but a rumor that I heard was that, cutting the wrestling program was one of the conditions for them to transition to D1. And I think that was kind of out of, a rivalry base from Nebraska-Lincoln, which to my understanding is the main Nebraska school.
Yeah.
But, right. But that's hearsay. That's something that we can discuss at another time. But yeah, when you have schools that end up transitioning, to NCAA, then you're going to have this power vacuum happen. And when one school seems to find, what clicks for them, then they're going to maintain that formula to stay successful. So
you of course know what the irony of that Nebraska Omaha cut was, right?
You'll have to.
The coach and essentially the entire staff and the team transferred to Maryville, who did not have a program before then. Maryville was our crosstown rivals in everything else except for wrestling, because like I said, they didn't have wrestling at the time. So Maryville saw the opportunity. They started a program, but I think that's also because they were going D2 as well. So it was one of those things where Omaha's loss was literally Maryville's game. So I think
that's normally what's going to happen
for a while in D2.
That's what's going to happen, when people don't, when the doors shut in one area, another door is going to open. That always is the case. But, and really we'll have to consider this, if Grandview keeps winning like this, but maybe depending on how their other programs are doing, will they eventually try to transition from the NAIA to the NCAA?
Well, therein lies the question, is that what you would think that following the cycles that they would, but that might be the only dominant sport. That might be the only sport where they're winning and consistently doing good at. It's transitioning from NAIA to D2 is only good if all of your sports are doing consistent. Like I can point it out as well. Lindenwood, Notre Dame, McKendree, they all had very good competitive sports in NAIA level. That's one of the reasons why they made the transition. Grandview, like I said, I haven't checked out any of their other sports, but that's the only thing I know them for, is for wrestling. So if wrestling is the only thing that they're doing dominant in, then it doesn't make sense for them to go from NAIA to D2, not to mention the fact that you need to have a certain amount of sports. Like I said, I haven't checked out the rest of their sports, but it's very possible that they may not have the minimum number of sports. You need a minimum number of sports in order to make transitions. I know that may sound weird because of the fact that, again, you hear about wrestling programs being cut all the time, but it's just one of those things where there are minimums that need to be maintained. And if you're not meeting those minimums, then it doesn't make sense, and it's not even possible to make that transition. So again, I mean, I have no idea. Maybe the Grandview coach might want to go, but the rest of the school may not, or this might be the motivation for them to start doing better. I don't know. Well, they might just be one of those teams that are just stuck in this limbo where they're dominating a lower division, but they can't go any higher because they're not meeting the requirements. The eligibility requirements is always very complicated. So it's not as simple as saying, let's go D2 and then they're going D2. There's certain things that have to be met. So if they're not meeting it, then they may not be able to go.
Good point. So with that being said, though, congratulations to Grandview for, again, their 10th title. They are the first team in NAIA history to win 10 titles, reach that double-digit mark.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I think I do have a cheat sheet of mine. I don't know if that's coming up for you, but I did try to bring it up. Although I don't think it's coming up in here. But yeah, it looks like.
Is it on this thing?
I do have the cheat sheet, but I guess it's not. No, it's not gonna come from there. But I think if you look at, it looks like Central Oklahoma might have been really close. Although it looks like they got to 8 titles. So I think they were the closest one. There's a couple other schools in here that probably got to 6 and 7, but yeah, I think Central Oklahoma was the closest. But they are now in D2, and actually they will come up in our discussion about the D2 championships later on. So again, we'll have to see. Will Grandview, keep this up going forward? Just let me point up.
Well, the fact that Life was able to crack that, was able to snap their streak, means that And even though life was just blown out, the fact of the matter is they're up there. So I would imagine that life is probably going to be able to make.
Well, and kind of going back to, the state of Georgia, it's not just life now. They've also have another program called Reinhardt, which I believe we did touch up on last week as well. But, so again, I think one of the things we mentioned last week was that, hey, if there's more, the more programs coming up, the better, whether it's high school, college, we want those programs out there. We everyone wants that competitive nature.
Well, and again, it would be nice for wrestlers to have that opportunity that, like, for example, I didn't because, just as an example, I didn't get a chance to wrestle. It's like maybe if Vanguard had been around at the time that I was looking, maybe I could have been able to crack in there, but unfortunately I didn't get the opportunity. Neither was Cal Baptist wasn't around either. Life Pacific wasn't, in San Dimas that wasn't around in there. There's a lot more opportunities now at the at that kind of level that were not available at the time. There's also Simpson College up in
Reading.
Yeah, up in Reading. So just
you've got that, and you've got Menlo. Also, Menlo's been around for
Menlo. Menlo, I never looked at it because Menlo, as you could tell, they've kind of consistently been in an upper level. I don't know if they would have been interested in me.
Well, so let's look real quick at All-Americans representing.
Oh, something I was going to point out.
Yes.
When I had connections with Cal State Bakersfield, rest in peace, Tom Kasperai. Back when I had those connections, there was one guy I knew who was wrestling there who was from Georgia. So he was wrestling in California because obviously back then there weren't any opportunities. If Life Pacific existed at the time, I'm sure that he would have gotten the opportunity, but
yeah,
he didn't have the opportunity at the time.
So overall, as far as representing California schools for All-Americans, we had Jacob Mendoza, Menlo at 133 pounds. If we go down a bit, and then we had Elijah Palacio taking 6 at 149, also of Menlo. After that, we did have Frederick Padilla of Vanguard, so representing the OC that we grew up in. And then also previously mentioned Armand Fayazi, also of Vanguard at 174. Pretty much homegrown, Orange County, coming out of Vanguard. And then that looks like that's it as far as California wrestlers are concerned, although let me make sure down at the bottom. So four wrestlers from California schools ended up placing at the NAIA Championships this year. So All-American for them. You can see a lot of like Iowa and Nebraska and all of that. So, I'm hoping that we can have a breakdown episode later on. This is just kind of a quick review of what we've been able to see so far. So anyway, that will conclude our talking about the NAIA Championships. So I just want to go do a quick review of the D3 and D2 championships that are going to be coming up this weekend. So, Matt, I'm going to go into the D3 listing. And one thing I noticed, and I noticed this is an amusing thing, is that the D3 seems to be dominated by mainly private schools. And when I've looked at the championship list from the D3 list that shows who's won it, since 1995, the D3 championships have been won by only 2 schools. And they are Wartburg College and Augsburg College. And they're both back east. I believe Augsburg is in Illinois, I believe. And then I believe Wartburg is in either New Jersey or Indiana. I'll have to go back and double check it again. I apologize if I'm getting the details wrong, but it's basically been those 2 schools since 1995. So basically for 20 plus years, only 2 schools have been trading back and forth on this. And you can actually, I have here's the championship list right here. Now they actually canceled the 2021 championships too for D3. So I don't know how that worked. Maybe they just wanted to, because of just the dangers that might have been present, they didn't want to overexpose people, because they did end up doing the D2 and the D1 championships. But
let's face it, not as much is at stake at D3. I mean, realistically, how not to put down the skill level or the hard work or anything like that, but how many people really pay attention to D3? These kids aren't even getting paid to actually wrestle. If they have any kind of scholarships, it's academic. They're not being paid. It's just these are programs that essentially can't afford to pay their athletes any kind of scholarship. So there's just not as much. It's just not worth it realistically.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it might be, maybe it might, obviously it probably would be something else that's motivating them to go. Just however they're recruiting, and I guess, just based, probably what's happening is if wrestlers are deciding to go D3,
if you're at any other level aside from NCAA,
mm-hmm.
if you're at with a few exceptions of programs that actually hand out scholarships in the NCAA, but if you're at any other level, then you're going off. It's definitely off of some kind of athletic ability. You're not. There's definitely academics at all the other levels, but the academics comes especially into play at this level. That's the only thing essentially. I mean, you're not, like I said, they're not.
You're a smart person.
What?
You have to be a smart person.
Yeah, you have to be a smart person. It's like, why else would? It's like you said, these are all private schools. Why in the world would any of these guys want to compete at this level? And why else would they want to compete at this level? It's just, it doesn't make sense otherwise.
So just to give you a rundown of who ended up qualifying for what, and so basically the rankings based on the NCAA rankings, that's the National Coaches Wrestling Association, because they're the ones who do the rankings for pretty much, I believe, all the divisions, D1 through NAIA, NCAA, and then the WCWA. So Wartburg, they were on a three-peat from 2016 to 2018, and then Augsburg interrupted that streak. But Wartburg is trying to reclaim the title. They're ranked number 1 according to the coaches poll, and they qualified 7 wrestlers, which was actually the most that any team got to the tournament. So I would imagine it's going to be competitive, because then you had, and let me get you the rankings according to Intermat here for D3. So again, Wartburg is ranked number 1 according to the coaches poll. They qualified 7 wrestlers. Then you have North Central, who was ranked number 2, but they only qualified 4 wrestlers. So any hopes of them trying to get that championship is second to none at this point. Then you have the Coast Guard Academy, who is ranked number 3. They qualified 5. And then fourth place.
This is going to be the only example that's the only example of probably essentially kids getting scholarships. If you're going to any of the academies, you're essentially getting paid to go. So right. That's probably the only example I could think of any academy, because all the other academies are either D3 or you've got those.
Well, the only other academies, Air Force, Navy, and Army, right?
Yeah, they're all D2, but you do have those.
No, they're all D1.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. They're all D1, but you do have those 2-year academies that are essentially.
Oh, yeah, like was it? I think the Citadel. Is that one of them?
Yeah, stuff like that. Well, and then you had what formerly Marion Military Institute. They cut their wrestling program, but you've essentially got those programs that where, they're going in there and they'll try to transfer to, in order to get into one of the.
So anyway, the 4th ranked and then the 2 5th place teams, which was Baldwin Wallace, Wabash, I think is how you pronounce it. And then defending champion Augsburg, they all qualified 7 wrestlers. So other than those teams, I don't think any other wrestlers, I'd have to go back and double check. I didn't really have a lot of time to see everything, but I mainly concentrated on the top 5 teams. So you've got, 4 of the top 5 teams, or top 6 teams, technically, that qualified 7 wrestlers, which appears to be the most. So I got to imagine, it's just going to depend on which of these teams are going to be able to get, wrestlers into the semis and into the finals, is how that's going to determine who's going to win.
That sounds pretty competitive. I mean, for all we know, the streak might be broken of those 2 teams trading back and forth from 1995. That's mind blowing.
Yeah, I'm looking at this list and to think that, again, here it is all the way down here. I think it was I don't know how you pronounce this specifically. I think it's Ithaca. Ithaca. Yeah, they were the last.
Before that, you still had some Augsburg.
Right. But yeah, pretty much since then, you've got, and it's really hard to kind of look at it because both teams end up with Berg at the end of their names. So it's kind of hard.
There's a lot of Bergs back east. That's just a thing back there.
Right. So
if you really think about it, it's like we have to count those up, but those 2 programs are kind of rivaling. Could almost give Okie State a run for its money in terms of the number of championships.
and I think it's Wartburg is actually technically leading the championship race. They've got 14 compared to Augsburg's 13. So, I think this is the only division, out of wrestling where it's even that close in terms of who's the leader. So,
mind blowing.
Who knows? It could be one of them or maybe one of these other 2 teams. It could be Baldwin Wallace or Wabash that maybe breaks that streak. Who knows? But that'll be something interesting that we'll review for next weekend. Okay, so let's get down to D2 now. So in terms of here's what's been.
So here's a little fun fact, and I don't know if this is still the case, but like years ago, I actually looked up the number of schools in each division. So at the time, D1 still had the most, but the second was actually D3, and then it was D2. But that might have actually been before you had all these teams joining D2. It might still be the case. It might not, but it's definitely, that was definitely something interesting that I saw and was like, wait, what?
Yeah. So, so the interesting, you know, and again, this shows how much we've been out of this, but so for the last, since 2014, the schools that have dominated the championship scene at D2 is Notre Dame, Ohio, and St. Cloud State, but it's obviously St. Cloud State that's been winning the more championships. They've won 5 of the last 6, and they're currently on a 3-peat.
If you look at that, that's been relatively close. That's been a relatively close run.
Right. Yeah, it seems that, you know, St. Cloud has really had to keep it together in terms of making sure that they could win those championships. So they are the ones who are aiming for a 4-peat this time around. And so when I was looking at the rankings for, let me go to the Division II team rankings. And this is courtesy of intermatwrestle.com. So,
you have Central Oklahoma, actually.
Yes. Central Oklahoma is your leader, according to the coaches poll. And so,
well, if you looked at that, they'd won a few championships.
Yeah, they have quite a few championships because they have those 8 championships in the NAIA, and then when they transition to D2, they're still they've won a few championships. In fact, if I look at the list that I put together for them, they've won 7 championships in D2.
Their transition must have been after I left, because I don't remember them. I don't remember. They were still NAIA. I could almost swear they were still NAIA when I was wrestling.
Hard to say. I mean, the last championship that they won in D2 is 2007.
Okay.
So
never mind.
You might be thinking of another school, but
I think of Oklahoma City. Never mind. But yeah, it's coming back to me. Central Oklahoma. Well, they were a D2 player at the time, which actually makes sense if you look at it. I think they won. Yeah, 2007. So.
Yeah, 2007 was the last time they won, but you know, so now they're looking to reclaim that crown for the first time in be 15 years now. So, you know, that means combined they have a total of 15 national titles, 8 in the NAIA, 7 in D2. So as far as when they went through the qualifiers, they were ranked number 1, and they ended up qualifying 8 wrestlers, which is a pretty respectable number in terms of if you're really trying to gun for that national title, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, you've got a pretty competitive chance in there, especially if you're the top team.
So number 2 is St. Cloud State, and they qualified 7 wrestlers. And then up at number 3, you've got West Liberty, who did qualify 8, and then Nebraska Kearney is looking like they're gonna make some noise. You know, they were competitive with Nebraska Omaha, and I believe that after Nebraska Omaha had to fold, Kearney did win the next 2 titles the year after Omaha was gone. So Kearney is no joke. They ended up qualifying 9, which is the most for a team going to the D2 championship.
Just the fact that they have 9 gives them kind of an advantage. I mean, they
right.
could, with that many, they could easily slip in there and make things competitive.
So number 5, McKendree ended up qualifying 6 wrestlers. So, but there are 2 teams outside of the top 5 that did end up qualifying 8 to the tournament, and that was Augustana, South Dakota, and then Gannon University. So, you know, there's I think it'll be quite competitive. But Matthew, I think if you were to look at who might have the advantage for this time around, I mean, we'd have to think that it's probably going to come down to Central Oklahoma, you know, the defending champion St. Cloud State, and possibly Nebraska Kearney coming in to, you know, reclaim the throne after so many years.
West Liberty, how many do they have qualified?
West Liberty did qualify 8 also.
So we can't necessarily count them out either.
Probably not.
It's looking to be competitive. It's going to be looking to be competitive. It should be a good D2 championship.
So, yeah. So we'll have to see definitely what's going to happen there. But if you were to, I mean, since this is kind of more wide open, Matthew, do you want to give a top 3 prediction on who you will take D2?
I do not. I do not.
Okay. You're not, well, obviously, I guess when we're more into this next year, we'll definitely, you and I will both try to give.
Well, I was never familiar with D2. I mean, like I said, even though I did even though I was interested in 2 D2 programs, you know, and one of them offered me a scholarship, the reality is I never followed D2 that well. I was always more interested in NAIA than I was in D2, and especially when I started wrestling NAIA. So,
all right,
I was gonna mention, you know, clearly, what's it called? Notre Dame, Ohio, going from NAIA to D2 paid off because you saw they won a few D2 championships, so it paid off.
Okay.
For them.
So, you know, again, we'll be seeing who's going to take it. That I think, you know, it's probably going to be wide open as far as D2 is concerned. So it'll be interesting to see how we talk about it for next week when it has concluded. So with that being said, Matthew, so that concludes our previews for D3 and D2. And hopefully next year when we're following this more closely, we're going to get into who actually is wrestling and such. And so that's something that we plan for the future. So now, Matthew, I want to go over with you about a bit of a controversial topic that came up because Flow Wrestling decided to air in full on YouTube. And you know Flow Wrestling, because they're the premium subscription service for wrestling videos in probably the world. They cover a lot. But it came up that at the 138-pound weight class finals at the CIF state championships, there was a bit of controversy in terms of a call made by the officials. And so to give you a breakdown of what happened, it was 2-2 at the end of regulation. And then no point, obviously nothing happened in Southern Victory. And then you had, this was the number 2 seed, Michael Joffrey from Buchanan, versus Bo Montanano, I think Montanona, I'm sorry. So Bo Montanona of Palm Desert, who came into the tournament as the number 1 seed. So, and this probably meant that this was the number 2 and the number 1 and the number 2 ranked wrestlers in the state in the tournament. So of course you're going to have it be very close. So Joffrey in tiebreaker 1 got his escape. So, you know, so now it's down to, now it's Bo Montanona's choice. He takes bottom. And so I'm not going to play the sound in the event that Flow might what do you
Copyright
call
it.
Copyright it. So hopefully by playing this, they won't copyright it either. But I just want to show you what's going to happen here.
Sorry for our audio listeners.
Right. I just want to show you what's going to happen here and what your thoughts are going to be on it. Let me full screen it too, so that you can have a better view of it. But so here it is, the start of the second tiebreaker. So Buchanan, Joffrey takes top here. Obviously, Montanona, he's trying to get out. He does a switch, and then he hooks the leg right here. And what ends up happening is
control. Yep, he gave him the control.
He gave him the control. He also counted 2. So means that
that's 2 near fall.
Is up 4-3. He's also got 2 in the pocket because of the near fall count. Now, here's what happens here. Buchanan, as you can see, they're asking for a conference, and then you've got the officials discussing in the background. Now, everybody and Montanona thinks that he's won. He's the state champion. But you've got, and see what happens here. The referee waves it off.
Wait, what? What?
And Joffrey is declared your winner. Now, obviously, no one is happy.
What?
The coaches aren't happy. You know, the crowd isn't happy. I watched the video in its entirety. You know, this was just, you know, rife with controversy here. And so what ended up happening was, you know, the coaches from Palm Desert and Montanano, they stayed on the mat, because if you leave the mat, then it's over, right? So they're waiting to see what's going to happen, because obviously they protested this. They went to the head official there. They went to the rules interpreter, Dwayne Morgan. They went to the tournament director. There was a conference that went on for about 10, 15 minutes or so. But in the end, they upheld the referee's decision, and Joffrey was named the winner 3-2. Now, again, let's go back to, you know, what happened here. Right here. Here's the switch once again. Now, see that? He hooks the leg.
That is control.
Right. Even though Joffrey might have had the leg, had the leg with his arm, you know, the fact of the matter was that Montanano did hook the leg. And I'm looking at this from, you know, I have to look at this from a referee's perspective, you know, because I officiate. I've gotten to officiate, you know, up to the CIF divisional.
Well, let me get this straight. The 4 points, the ref decided it didn't happen.
Waved it off. And so obviously, and, you know, I mean, you and I, we're both no strangers to controversial calls. I mean, obviously there was a controversial call that cost you, you know, going to the state tournament because you had a wrestler on his back and the ref never counted it. But
yeah, I should have had like what,
3 points. You were behind by a point or two, and those 3 points would have, you know, earned you the ticket to state. But
put the guy on his back twice, as a matter of fact.
Right. But I mean, just something like here that's so blatantly.
My understanding is the head ref went up to the guy afterwards and said, "You screwed up."
Yeah.
We're gonna let it stand, but you screwed up.
Yeah, and you know, I'll admit myself that, you know, I make mistakes too when I ref.
Does.
And you know, no one's perfect and stuff, but here's where I think that, you know, for me as an official, and I don't even know where these guys are from. I don't know if they're from the South region. I don't know if they're from the North region. I don't know what section they're from. But honestly, I think that they messed this up.
They messed up big time. If you count the points need to stand.
And here's the thing. Yes, here's the thing. He had no business waving off, because the thing is that he second guessed himself. That in and of itself is wrong. And, you know, and he shouldn't have even been consulting the assistant referee about that. He had no business doing that. The other thing was that he seemed to defer to Buchanan about that. you know, he didn't even have Buchanan come to the table. He just went straight to the assistant ref. And I made sure I was looking at the rule book about this. And the thing is that, you know, and I'll stick it up here to the camera for everyone to see here. And here, and it's going to be
read it for the audio listeners.
Here. Right. So on picture number 28, picture number 28, this is the one that I'm going to refer to. There is control by the wrestler on top of if this position is held beyond reaction time, even though the hands of the opponent are locked around a leg. And really, if you're looking at it right here, Joffrey has his hand on the mat, meaning that he's definitely not locking.
Yeah, he's not in control.
This and believe me, there appears to be plenty of reaction time. If you're looking at it, let's go back. He hooking the leg right then and there, you know, in and of itself. And they're saying reaction time on here. Well, there's probably a good 2-3 seconds where he's holding that position. So even if they were to wave off the near fall, this should have stood.
That's the reverse. Yeah, that's the reversal. He should be the state champion.
Have stood. There was absolutely no reason for this official to make that call.
This guy's going to be hearing it for the rest of his officiating career. The rest of his officiating career.
I mean, again,
he's gonna hear it constantly. He's gonna constantly hear you screwed over a state champion. You deprived a kid of his ring. Because you second guessed yourself.
Right. And what I'm gonna have to feel bad for, you know, because I was reading the comments in this video, you know, because I mean, for Flo to put up a match in full on YouTube is very unusual, but. You know, this completely ruins the mood for the awards because because of the build up for this match, because my guess is that these two wrestlers were the top P4P wrestlers in the state. That's probably why they decided to have this particular match be the last match of the night. And to have something like this happen, to have this controversy happen, you know, it ruins the mood of the awards ceremony. There was one person who commented that Joffrey ended up being booed by the crowd when he got up on the podium. And
you gotta feel sorry for the kid because he only did what he was trying to do.
Right.
And feel sorry for Montanona, who again. They just went out there and they wrestled. And
here's the thing. If him going straight to the assistant ref, in my mind, was the wrong thing to do, because they're always, you know, at my association meets, you know, at meetings, you know, there's a process that we're always supposed to go through. And always, if a coach disagrees with you, he's supposed to bring you to the head table. That's what I'm always told via my association. So for him to not follow rules and think about, you know, these are supposed to be the top refs in the state. They're supposed to know the rules better than I do. So for them to completely ignore this, here's another thing I want to bring up.
I just want to qualify in the officiating rule book. What you're talking about, that's in the officiating rule book, correct?
Yes, it's just that. Right. This is the 2021-2022, the wrestling rule book. And so I'm going based on, again, you know, because some other person who commented on it was showing that. So, you know, the fact of the matter is, and I'll go, you know, I'll go ahead and so that maybe people can see it bigger. But again, this is the position right here that was held. And when it's saying beyond reaction time, that was clearly reaction time. The other thing I want to point out is this: is that if
I feel sorry for both these kids more than anything else because they just went out there and wrestled, and it's not Joffrey's fault that
that a call went his way.
Yeah,
no
it's
matter
not his
how
fault that he got screwed. But now all of a sudden they're saying you robbed him of a championship. It's like, no, it's not his fault.
Right. I mean, I'm hoping that people are leaving him alone in that aspect. It's never, you can't, because it's their names that are going to be tied to that match, because who knows what the ref's name is. I don't even know who that ref's name is. I don't even know if I want to know, but
you were talking about, it's like, for example, you were talking about, that, you were talking about that match that I got screwed over. It's like, I don't weep and cry over it. And then, like my final match of my high school career when I went to state, for the longest time, I was saying it wasn't my fault. But then there was kind of a point where I was like, you know what, I have to man up and just own up to the fact that I lost that match. And, it's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is, if I'd done something different, I would have won my match at Masters my junior year, and I would have won my match at Masters my senior year, and I would have made it to state. But I didn't. Now, I don't know what I would have done in the long run. I mean, ultimately, I wasn't going to go any higher. The fact of the matter is, I went to NAIA, and my competitive peak was high school. I got whooped for 4 years. And like I said, I had a very gracious coach who said, you're showing up and you're doing better academically than most of the other kids. I'm going to keep you on because you're loyal and you excel academically. It's like I said, another coach could have easily said, I'm sorry, I need your spot for someone else. You got to go. So it's one of those things where it's like, I hope these, and again, I didn't even make it to state. These guys are in the state finals. I hope that these guys do not let this bog them down for the rest of the time. It's like Joffrey,
well, Joffrey is a senior, so he's not going to be back. He's committed to I did read up on some of his social media. He's committed to the University of Virginia.
So he needs to go. You know what? He needs to go out there. He just needs to wrestle and needs to forget about this. Yeah. Now, hopefully people forget about this. I mean, realistically, if this had happened like a D1, the person wouldn't have heard the end of it for the rest of their lives. But this was, and now granted, this was state, but he just needs to go there and he needs to wrestle and he needs to take advantage of what he's been given. It's unfortunate. And Montanano.
Sorry.
Montanona.
He's a junior, so he's going to be back. He's going to be back next year. I'm very sure he's going to be the #1 ranked wrestler. He'll probably be the favorite to
come back, and he needs to leave. No doubt, he just needs to win.
Yeah,
it's like you were deprived of being at most a 2-time state champion. Go back there, win your state title next year.
So one last thing I'd kind of and to close this out, because obviously we knew this was going to be a very heated topic. My point is that if that ref had gone to the table, and actually followed the procedures, then changed, the call. I mean, I wouldn't have agreed with the call, obviously, but I would have been more agreeable that he followed the procedure.
Is there some kind of I really think there needs to be like more like officiating like oversight in most of these sports when these people make these topics. It's like
yes,
there needs to be more oversight.
Well, like for example, I think there does need to be, a feedback provided. And I think that they do provide that at the state tournament for the officials. I just don't know in what capacity though. But like, for example,
this guy needs to be told you screwed up. You didn't follow procedure, you screwed up.
If you're college football coaches aren't allowed to criticize the referees when they make a stupid call on something, and they end up getting fined for it if they say it publicly. Same thing with, you know, the professional leagues. You know, the professional leagues can't say anything. And so, yes, I think that, you know, and this is coming from myself as an official. There needs to be some kind of, like, you know, there does need to be some kind of oversight, I would think.
On all levels, on all levels of all sports, not just wrestling, not just football, not just anything. All levels of all sports, there needs to be some kind of oversight on the refs. If they keep screwing up, they need to be thrown out of whatever, or go through some kind of there needs to be something done, because officials need to be, the officials, if they screw up, they need to be held accountable just as much.
Like, of course, for all I know,
there needs to be accountability. It's like where they're basically told, if you screw up, if you make this wrong decision, you're going to be held accountable for it. There needs to be, because these refs, they screw up, and you know, now granted, there's going to be exceptions. Like, I forget how long ago it was that the NFL had their officials strike, and as a result, they were getting these NCAA officials. It's like, okay, that's one thing. These guys are trying to do rules that they don't know, but if these people are supposed to know the job, and if you're screwing up and if you're making wrong calls, then, and it's one thing if it's like you could have made it one way or the other. This was just a plain old screw up. Like, it's one thing if the guy, if you know, you go to a it's like the guy made the call based off of what he said in real time, and he realizes, oh, maybe I should go look back on it. He does, and he decides.
In order for him to overturn the call, he should have waved it off right then and there, because if that was the case, then Montanona would have wrestled differently. He would have tried to escape then, instead of because the ref gave the 2, meaning that told Montanona that he was leading, meaning he just had to hold on, is what that ended up happening. So anyway, we're running a bit short on time with that. So I just want to, you know, again, I'm hoping that, yes, there will be something that comes up from that. And I mean, for all I know, I mean, I don't, you know, we're still a small channel right now, so, you know, I'm not expecting to get a blowback from this, but who knows? They might say something, you know, somebody might see this later on and maybe cost me although I don't expect.
Is there any kind of is there any kind of disciplinary action for you? It's not gonna fall back on me, because I don't competitively wrestle.
Yeah, no, it's like, hey, I get out there because, you know, hey, you know, it's fun to do, and, you know, you see a lot of exciting you know, it's a front row seat to a lot of exciting matches. So anyway, so moving on to our second controversial topic, you know, and obviously, you know, 3 episodes in and we're already going to get political, but
which we typically don't want to do. I mean,
we're you know, politics for our followers and viewers, we're going to try and stay as apolitical as possible. But with this, I felt we had to bring up because, you know, because of just how the world is right now and such. So, you know, and this isn't happening just in wrestling. It's happening in a lot of other sports.
Most other sports.
But so the United World Wrestling, which is the governing body of international wrestling,
formerly known as FILA,
right? They declared that Russian and Belarusian athletes are being barred from competition, and also that no events will be held in those 2 countries also for the time being. And this is obviously related to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now,
I still don't know why Belarus is getting punished. I mean, they're not they're supporting. The Ukrainians and the Russians met in Belarus to try to create a ceasefire.
Well, yeah, Belarus has sent some. They're siding with the Russians on this. So.
Yeah, they let them go through their territory.
And then the other thing, you know, and then the other thing is that what was I gonna? I forget what I was gonna say, but yeah. So they, they're barring wrestlers from these countries from competing, and again, this is the other thing I should mention is that yes, this is happening in other sports as well. And who knows how long this ban is gonna last, and it's probably gonna last until this conflict is resolved. Again, you hate to see something like this happening, but I'm reading. I've been reading quite a few comments on social media, and so is this what merit is there that you're gonna punish the athletes for something that there's actually quite a few people in Russia that are not supportive of this invasion. So, I mean, I don't think that, and again, we'll have to go back to history. It's like, well, what did they do with, the Nazi Germany, where they banned it all for the Olympics and such? They
hosted the Olympics.
Right. They hosted the Olympics in Berlin in 1936. So, this stance that, UWW, some of these other, governing bodies of sports are taking, is it necessary? I don't know. And, you and I are obviously not at the high levels, so we don't know what specifically they've talked about that warranted them doing this. I mean, what is USA Wrestling, doing about this? They're probably, since they answer to the IOC, the IOC is, because this was discussed with the IOC as far as this was concerned. So, it's not a pretty thing to have to look at, and hopefully again this will end soon. Because I think one of the things that does tend to bring people together is the sportsmanship and such. So I don't know. It's a tiring topic to have to discuss, and hopefully, the next time we talk about this will be, hopefully it'll be soon when we talk about that, the athletes have been reinstalled to be.
Well, and here's the thing where it's kind of like UWW was caught in a rock and a hard place. You see, it's with the Olympic Charter. The IOC was the one who made the decision, and unfortunately, they're having to go with the ruling of the IOC. If I'm 90% sure that if UWW had their own choice, if it was just left down to the individual federations, they would let them wrestle, because Eastern Europe has this long tradition. Granted, it was dated back to when the Soviets were existing. That that these wrestlers, that Eastern European wrestlers, were just very good wrestlers, and it's very unfortunate because most Russian wrestlers don't have political stances. They're just like, I just want to wrestle. So, and it's same with the Belarusians. The Belarusians are in a worse situation in terms of like economics, because Russia's been able to bounce back a little bit. But Belarus is one of those countries where once the fracture happened, it's like they were kind of essentially a third world country in terms of their economics, and they're kind of stuck that way. But one thing I'm going to point out, for example, and maybe this is just because of the fact that they're private companies, but like the UFC and Bellator, as far as I know, they're not barring the Russian athletes. Like they had two Russians fight on the prelims this last yesterday, and the Russians there's still plans for Russian fighters to fight. They're not doing anything. They're just like, you know what, these guys just want to go out and compete. We're not gonna hold them accountable for their government screwing up. And it's also kind of one of those things where most of the fighters kind of in the UFC right now are from Dagestan, Russia, and Dagestan is very different from like Putin, who grew up in like I think Stalin, what's now it's called St. Petersburg, but it used to be Stalingrad. So, where it was kind of more Eastern, it was still European, and culturally it was still a little bit more on the Western side. Whereas Dagestan, those guys are mostly Muslim, and they have mostly like more of a Central Asian look to them. So these guys don't care. They're just like, I just want to go out and compete. I don't care about anything that's going on. And they might be some of the people who are condemning the attacks, but they just want to go out and compete, and they don't really care about anything else. So,
okay, well, to close out our episode today, I want to get into some more happy news.
Yes, happy news. Happy news.
Yes,
I know
that there is a D1 school that is bringing back. They're planning on bringing back their wrestling program. And Matthew, thank you for sending this article to me, or at least giving me the news. So I'm gonna bring it up here, and so it's going to be. Let me make sure I screen share the article that I found that's gonna talk about this. So Morgan State University, which is a historically black college, and so they're coming back. It's probably going to be this, yes, it's tentatively going to be 2023-24 that they're going to be bringing back the program. And I think, just coming from a standpoint of, that, well, one, we need more programs, but I think two, helping those who might be in, maybe economic hardships or, underprivileged, I think is important. Just bringing people out of, what might be dangerous situations, because wrestling, there's not really a lot that needs to be done as far as wrestling goes in terms of, team playing. You do have your duels, you do have your teammates competing in their divisions, but when it all comes down to it, it's really between you and the opponent that's standing a foot across from you on that mat. And so I think just giving these opportunities to those, especially in a hard hit area, where Morgan State might be, is important, I think, for reviving this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. And it's like you said, any opportunity for wrestling is an opportunity. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's like we don't care about the school. If you're going to start a wrestling program, or restarting it, we're going to welcome it with open arms. And the historically black colleges were obviously created for a specific purpose. It was obviously to create opportunities, because at the time segregation was king, and a lot of black wrestlers weren't, just black people in general weren't allowed into certain colleges. So the historically black colleges were created so that they could actually go and get an education. And even though they've obviously, because of desegregation, they've been allowed to go, elsewhere, and even even non-black people have been allowed to go to the colleges. It's still this kind of unique culture, and it's still kind of a unique atmosphere. So I would imagine that but the fact of the matter is, it's still athletics. You're still going out there and you're competing. So yeah, it's like it's nice to see well, and then another thing is that was interesting is that this was actually the result of a group of people who are actually trying to restart wrestling, not just at Morgan State, but all the historically black colleges. I mean, apparently most of them used to have wrestling, and unfortunately,
and I'm also looking at this. This was if I go down, because I know that Beat the Streets name came up, I think, in the Sports Illustrated. I got the Sports Illustrated article also. And I think Beat the Streets was also involved in, obviously Beat the Streets. Their mention came up last week when we mentioned that the DC public schools were going to bring back wrestling to the high schools there. So I think the fact that Beat the Streets has been really working on this, they're really serious about wanting this, when we're talking, again, not to get political, but when you want to talk about an equal opportunity, well, I mean, hey, here's something to create an equal opportunity right here. Because in the sport of wrestling, anyone can get to that top if they are given the opportunity and they work hard at it. And I think also what's important is that, wrestling is also a very disciplined sport. You really need to be mentally strong up here. And, you have to have a routine and everything. And, studies have shown, and we'll be more than glad to reference it later, but studies have shown that people have wrestled and then even wrestling in college, the hiring rate, when companies hire someone out of college, wrestlers are a very high percentage of hirees right off the bat. So.
Well, that just comes from the culture of our community, is that it's hard work. You're not going to get there with any other attitude. You got to go in there and you got to put in your time in the room, and then you got to put in your time on the mat, and it's you got to do it. It's in order to do that. And so, yeah, like I said, any opportunity is a good opportunity, and don't know where this is going to lead to. Have no idea what conference they join, but yeah, we'll welcome them wherever they come up. So,
all right. Well, that was Matthew. Again, great to have you on board. We're running short on time for today, so we'll have to end the episode here. But next week we will be going over the results of the D2 and D3 championships and the results of the D1 conference championships, with a review of what's to come for the D1 championship weekend. So everyone, thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope you have a great week.
And for those who and also for those who are looking for specific places, we're on YouTube, Rumble, and for audio only listeners, we are on Acast. We're looking to expand to other platforms, and we'll keep you posted on those.
And you can also check out Matthew. He does write articles for the website mma-freak.com, so you can check him out there. And again, thank you all for joining. Thank you again, Flow Wrestling, for putting out that video. Just as much as to the nature of it, I think it does highlight, important things that need to happen. And again, yes, so we'll be seeing you next week. Until then, take care of yourselves, everyone.